Hi everyone, welcome to week 4. Can you believe we're already in week 4 confession? And I want to get this out to you. I'm going to give you a separate video with a brief history on kind of the particulars of confession that I want you to be thinking about, but I'm still working on that and I will get that to you later today. But in the meantime, I wanted to cover some housekeeping things for you because I know, first of all, I'm hoping that you've all gotten your grades on your posts from last week. And I just wanted to go over the grades very briefly for you. First, the grades are 1 through 5, and that represents each post is 5% of your grade. So it was just easy for the correlation between 1 and 5. And the lowest grade that I gave was a 2. The highest grade that I gave was a 5. What you should know is if you received a 2 or a 3, what I'm telling you there is I'm looking for more. I'm looking for more reflection. I'm looking for more engagement with the readings. I'm looking for, your post was probably a little short. I may also be looking for more organization. If the post wasn't as clear or as well thought out as I thought it should be or could be, then you might have landed in that 2 to 3 range. Most of you landed in the 4 range with some 5s. What 4 means is if you talked about the readings, but you didn't really reflect on yourself, but you did a good job of talking about the readings and the post was clear and understandable, then I probably gave you a 4 and said, you got what that means then, because I can't comment, unfortunately, through the way the posts are graded. I apologize for that. But what that means is, okay, I need to do a little bit better job of balancing talking about the readings and talking about my experience. I know that this is it's kind of an artificial thing, the way these assignments are set up. This is not wholly just my idea. This is the way Fuller wants you to do these assignments. Ultimately, I think it's a good thing because it's ultimately what you would be doing as a pastor. And even if you're going to become a psychologist, there, particularly actually as a psychologist, there's this constant back and forth between what you're reading, the theory, and then applying that theory to your own experience, your own life, so that you can help others, or at least I think that's probably what you're doing. Certainly as a pastor, you should be doing this process of looking at the theory, the readings, the information, maybe even the scripture, and then seeing how does that affect me? How does that apply to me so that then I can take it out and help others see their way through it as well. So that's that. I know it feels a little awkward, a little artificial, but I do think it's a really, really good exercise for you guys. So if you ended up in a 4 and you talked a lot about the readings, then probably what happened was you just didn't quite talk enough about yourself or your own experience. If you ended up with a 4 and you talked about the yourself a lot, then what I was probably thinking is, you probably needed to engage those readings a little bit more. For those of you who ended up with 5s, good job, keep going, hang in there. And if you have more specific questions, feel free to email me and ask me more questions. As far as the one other thing that I want to remind you of, and I know that I'm having trouble fitting this into my schedule, so I'm suspecting that I'm really hearing how busy you guys all are, and I am absolutely sympathetic to that, and I want to be really sensitive to that, but at the same time I don't want you to miss out on what I think is an amazing experience and opportunity to take 10 weeks and really devote yourself to biblical reading where you don't have to be graded. You're not graded on it. You're not, all I'm going to ask you to do is reflect on this experience when you talk about prayer, but it's a really great experience. So don't forget your Book of Common Prayer. The table is on page 87 is where January comes up. and we're following along. What I'm finding is I am having trouble fitting everything into my schedule. So what I've resolved to do is I'm going to turn this kind of Bible reading into a more communal practice and engage my husband in it. And then that will be a time where I can spend time with my husband and get my Bible reading done. For you guys with young kids, what a great way to, it may not be their favorite storybook, but at least you can read some of it to them and maybe, they'll fall asleep quicker, right? We'll see. So, and then, you may want to involve your spouse or just find ways to fit it into your schedule, because I think it's a really beautiful opportunity for all of you to work through that. The next thing that I want to talk about is our readings for this week. And I've given you two very different readings, but they're both really amazing, I think. The first, of course, is Bonhoeffer. And if you have not read Bonhoeffer before, what an amazing guy and what an amazing writer. And this is really a beautiful book. And having you read large parts of it, it would probably be lovely for you to be able to read the whole thing, but I'm not requiring that. Actually, this week you have a fairly light amount of reading. And so anyway, I just think that this guy is amazing, and to reflect on what he went through and the choices that he made are pretty amazing. The introduction is worth taking a look at. If you don't know that much about Bonhoeffer, take a look at the introduction. My favorite line in the introduction is on page 11, when they say that his friend is talking about Bonhoeffer's choice to engage and participate in the resistance against Hitler. And he says that Bonhoeffer could see no possibility of retreat into any sinless, righteous, pious refuge. The sin of respectable people reveals itself in flight from responsibility. Wow, might even be applicable to our times. So worth taking a look and thinking about Bonhoeffer. As far as Jean Guyon, or Madame Guyon, I have posted a PowerPoint. I have taught on her before. She is on the list, of approved reading for Fuller. So if you're reading her and thinking, wow, this is really far out there, she's on the approved list, and she is, Dallas Willard is a big fan of Jean Guyon. If you take a look at any of his recommended spiritual readings, this book always comes up on it. What I've done is I've posted a PowerPoint where I have taught on her before. Rather than belabor the PowerPoint now here with you, I just encourage you to take a look at the PowerPoint. She's a really fascinating writer, fascinating background. And so take a look and see what you think. Again, if you have any questions on her, feel free to email me. Now I want to talk quickly about the activity that you're going to be doing this week, the vocational formation activity. I wanted to get this out to you so that you can be planning ahead for your week. So your activity is a confessional conversation. I believe I required a 2-hour conversation. An hour will do. I'm good with an hour. I'm hearing how busy all of you are. It may be something that will morph into a 2-hour conversation once you get started, but at least plan on an hour in your week. I do want you to, for that conversation, Guyon is beautiful. She takes a completely different tack on confession. Absolutely read this, be thinking about it, be thinking about how it could play into your life. But for the conversation, you'll be following Bonhoeffer. And what I wanted to address today is, so you're going to have to make an appointment with whoever you're going to talk to and set up a time where you can have this conversation. And what I do want you to do is spend some time thinking about, A, what you want to talk about, but B, who you're going to talk to. And that may be almost more important than what you're going to talk about. And so for Bonhoeffer, if you take a look at page 118, he talks about, he says, to whom shall we make confession? According to Jesus' promise, every Christian brother can hear the confession of another. Now, obviously, if you're Catholic, this is not the case. You're going to be going to a priest and you're going to, do confession in that way. You don't have to do that for this assignment, though, of course. You can go ahead and do what we're doing in terms of having a conversation. But for the rest of us, any Christian brother is what, Bonhoeffer says. But he clarifies that. He says, but will any brother or sister understand? And he says, really, anybody who lives beneath the cross, who has discerned in the cross of Jesus the utter wickedness of men and of his own heart, will find there is no sin that can ever be alien to him. So in other words, what Bonhoeffer is saying is you need to find someone who has some insight into themselves and who's honest with themselves. You don't want to be going and confessing to someone who's like, well, I would never do that because I'm perfect. And, how could you have done that? That will probably not achieve the goals that, you're looking for in terms of feeling God's forgiveness and God's love through this conversation. So what I've done for you is I've posted an article from the Huffington Post by Brené Brown. And I don't know, some of you may be familiar with her work, some not. She, has become very popular in the past 3 or 4 years. She's a social worker. She teaches at the University of Houston. She's a researcher, but she's also a Christian. And so I think that this thought is imbued with her Christianity, but she goes through a list of 6 different types of people that you don't want to be confessing to. She talks about it as a shame, as a conversation where you're going to share your shame. I don't think those two things are necessarily equivalent. However, I think there's enough overlap that her article makes sense. So please take a look at her article and give some thought to finding someone who is going to be safe and supportive to talk to you about whatever you want to share, and then give some thought about what you want to share. And I'm not saying, there may be something that you have held in your heart for many, many years and you've told no one or you've really not talked about. This may be the time that you want to talk about that. It may not be, and that is fine with me. I'm not pushing anyone to talk about anything that they are not ready to talk about. This is really just an opportunity for you to have an honest conversational, and confession in a way that can help move you forward in your spiritual life, but is not going to tank you and derail you if you get into something that you really aren't prepared to talk about. The last thing that I do want to say is take a look at your scripture that I assigned, John chapters 1 through 4. I know that it's a scripture where you may read it and say, well, this isn't obvious that there's confession here. There is lots of other scripture that Bonhoeffer goes over that supports the Christian, notion of confession. But what I want you to do in John 1 through 4 is really take a look at the conversations that take place in that scripture, and particularly the woman at the well, and be thinking about, is that a conversation that's akin to what is happening with Madame Guyon and what she describes? So I leave you with that interesting question. Thank you for bearing with me. I had a lot to talk about. Again, any questions, email me. I'm always happy to hear from you. I hope all is well. Have a great week. I'll post a little short, I promise, short video on the history of confession later today. Take care. Bye.